Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It's Rick Garcia and Brandon Bradley from Everything Teams Phone Live and Momentum. So if you don't catch us every Friday, noon Pacific, you should. It's a LinkedIn show now on Spotify. So Everything Teams Phone Live. Today, Brandon, we want to do a real quick high-level demo of the Teams Fax. It's a patent pending application. We get lots and lots of questions on Teams Fax. So I thought I would bring you on and have you do a quick little demo on the Teams Fax and kind of highlight what's important about that. So Brandon, thanks for hanging out with us here.
You bet.
Let's talk about high level here. It's fully compliant from a HIPAA perspective. Brandon, you could tell us why is it fully compliant, Brandon?
Yeah, one of the approaches we took with Teams Fax was to shift the storage of that fax into the customer's Microsoft environment. That could be SharePoint or OneDrive. Ultimately, OneDrive is SharePoint. And what that then leverages is that storage within SharePoint is encrypted at rest by default. And our strategy is just to transmit that fax into that environment in an encrypted fashion and let that data sit at rest in the customer's environment.
Okay, awesome. Now, Brandon, is this an application that Momentum designed, or is this another third party? What is this?
No, this is an in-house self-developed app by Momentum, by the team that works for me. And I think you mentioned that it's patent pending. Only way it can be patent pending is we developed it ourselves.
Very good, very good. And this Fax from Anywhere piece, there's a thing. What does that basically mean? I know you put a cool video up on LinkedIn a while back. What's the Fax from Anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, it leverages that same Teams client that you're familiar with, that sits on your mobile, sits on your desktop, sits on your tablet. The Fax app lives within Teams, plugs in like any other application, and functions anywhere you go in the world. So you can take Fax with you on the go.
Excellent. Okay, and then the last thing I'll just go over, because some of the stuff we've talked about, send to groups or individuals. What does that mean?
Yep, we leverage the Teams team. That's a mouthful. The Teams team channel to enable a fax account in a group setting. So now you can leverage group memberships. So you can use the Microsoft, what we call RBAC, role-based access control, to add members to the group. So if let's say you have an HR group or a finance group that wants to share a fax account, now you use the native Microsoft permissions to add members to those groups, and they now inherently get access to the fax account.
Awesome. All right, well, let's just get started. Why don't you just show us around? I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Why don't you just give us the rundown?
Okay, so this is the Teams client. Everyone should be familiar with the Teams client. I'm sitting on the dial pad just for reasons that I don't want to show the Fax app just yet, because there's this whole authentication process that's important to talk about, which I'll get to here in a second. The highlight is that the Teams Fax is an app that sits inside of Teams. Once it's installed, it shows up like any other app in the client, can be pinned like I have it pinned here. This Fax app, as it's pinned here, is used for individual fax accounts. So Rick, that's if you want your own fax account and it's private to you and you don't want to share the account. When I click on this app, it's going to go through, and this is an important thing for anyone watching this demo to understand. When I click on it, it launches into the single sign-on process that is already being leveraged to sign into Teams. So what that means is it's a secure single sign-on process that keeps your company compliant as far as HIPAA requirements, ISO requirements, or SOC requirements that you might already be using. And it's leveraging the same credentials as your Microsoft account. So it's not even an interactive process. So I'm going to click on it. You're going to see it's immediately going to start the authentication process. And behind the scenes, what that means is we are leveraging the fact that you're already logged into Teams and authenticated to gain that access token to get in. So I'm authenticated. It's done so securely. And now I'm in and I can start using the app. A couple things I like to highlight right out of the gate is just popping right over to settings to show you what happens within the Fax app and how we do kind of the magic of making Fax happen in Teams. Ultimately, Momentum takes your fax phone number. We either port it over or we can give you a brand new fax number. You can see that here under the fax number, this 205 number, and we allow you to tell us what email address in Microsoft you want to associate that to, and then the magic happens. We pair your single signed on user to a fax account and enable that service. And then we extend the service into SharePoint or OneDrive, as we just mentioned, giving the user the flexibility to choose. And in this case, I've chose a SharePoint site, and I'm choosing to send it into this site named Demo Fax.
The benefit there, Brandon, right? So for SharePoint, dropping the faxes right into SharePoint is number one, it's a customer's data from a security perspective. It's their data. Does Momentum store the data in the Momentum Fax application?
Nope. Reiterating, we encrypt the fax in transit into the SharePoint site. We release that data once it's stored in the SharePoint site, and it is now 100% the customer's data. We do
And
not
two,
store that
since it's
data.
in SharePoint, you can do anything with it at that point, right? So if you're a healthcare organization and you've got sorting rules, if you've got Power Automate to go deliver that fax into other applications, you can go do that automatically from your SharePoint, right?
That's right. The Power Platform becomes, an open tool to any organization at that point. The other thing that it does is if you've already got compliance tools like Purview, where you're doing data loss prevention and compliancy tagging, you can leverage those existing tools because now it's just a SharePoint site with data in it that lives in that Microsoft environment. So compliance can just easily be wrapped in already because it's already in place, most likely for that SharePoint site
Got it.
overall for the organization. So what I'm going to do.
Now,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you said earlier, because our customers are asking, so this is for an individual right here, and what does the group one look like? So does the group one look exactly the same? Because the requirements sometimes come through going, how does like HR use this, and how does HR securely use this for just HR, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so for a group like HR or finance to use it, we've enabled the Teams functionality for this same app. So I'm going to come up to Teams. I've got this demo fax. Recognize that name. That's the SharePoint site that my personal user was going to store the faxes in. But for the sake of the demo, I'm also going to enable this same SharePoint site and Teams team channel for fax. So I'm going to click on fax, and it's going to
Okay, there it
authenticate
is.
me. And here it's the same exact app as what was pinned over here. The difference being when I click on settings, a couple main differences. We're authenticating in a different mechanism here. So the email address of this fax account, you'll notice this phone number is different. This is the UPN or the email address of the associated Teams group or the M365 group that makes the Teams team possible, that also enables the SharePoint site that sits behind it. So how my user is gaining access to this is through the native Microsoft controls. So if I click on Manage Team and I go to Members, you can see I'm the owner, so I inherently have access to this team. But if I want to add the rest of the team, let's say HR or finance, and I come in and I make these guys members, that inherently gives them access to the team to gain access to the fax application. And when the authentication takes place, we're just doing a logic check to ensure that your user is a member of that group. And if that's true, we authorize the access to that fax account. So there's still that secure MFA SSO process going on behind the scenes. And
Perfect.
that can
So
be fact
anybody can
checked.
use. So basically, if I got one fax for my entire company, I can
Yep,
put an entire company in that general sort of chat session, and everybody can send and receive from that one fax number. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay.
And then the last piece, you'll notice that my SharePoint site settings are grayed out. This is a compliance approach that we took, where a Teams team inherently has SharePoint attached to it. And because we wanted to shift the user-based access controls and the permission controls back into Microsoft, from a collaboration perspective, we made the decision to lock the fax account in this Teams team to the same SharePoint site. And that allows then it guarantees the permissioning is honored across the organization, so that if we allow someone to choose a different storage point, being a member of this team is no longer very useful because you may be a member of this team but not have access to the other SharePoint site.
That
So it
makes sense.
guarantees the compliance of making sure that that fax data is only accessed by the people who have access to the fax account.
Okay, very good.
Those are the
Okay.
main differences. I'm actually going to pop back over to the personal account for a second. Everything I'm about to show functions the same way, whether in a team or in individual. But I'm going to start by sending myself a fax really quick, and while we wait for it, I got to copy this number. While we wait for it, and it shouldn't take too long to get it, we can talk about how we. Well, you know what? I'm going to have to do this a different way. I'm going to have to send myself a fax from this account.
From
This
the
is going to be
team.
this is going to be a little confusing for the demo, but I'm going to send from the team account back to my personal account because I just want to show how it shows up in the app. But let's just pretend that I'm sending it from an off-net number. So
That's great. Okay.
I'm going to compose a fax. A couple required fields are, who you're sending it to. So maybe I'm sending to Rick Garcia, and I need the phone number, obviously, that I'm sending to. And maybe this is a ref doc. I'm making up things, but there it is. And then bare minimum, I can have a cover sheet if I want. Bare minimum, you obviously need some document to send. So I'm going to choose this document and I'm going to hit submit, and it's off. It's sending now. One of the things that we decided to do from a compliant perspective and a data archiving perspective is when that fax gets sent, we're doing the same exact thing with sent faxes as we are received. We're archiving them into the SharePoint site of the SharePoint that was set in settings. The other thing that we're doing, especially important for shared fax accounts, is we're doing a user audit on who sent that fax. So you can see I just sent a fax. Looks like a couple days ago Neil sent a fax. This is really important for HIPAA compliance, right? Understanding if you've got data loss that happens or HIPAA violation, you have an audit trail of who's doing what within that. When I hit this fax record and I open it up, we're just rendering that back from SharePoint. It's very important to note that the application itself is not storing this fax. This is literally just us rendering the fax from SharePoint. If it was multi-page.
I love that reply button. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Like the reply button is pretty neat.
Yeah, and that reply button works in both sent and received. So what I'm going to do is I actually sent that fax. This fax went to my other fax number that lives under this account. But what I'm going to highlight is you see an activity notification. You didn't see there's a card that pops up on my desktop as well, just like any other Teams notification. I'm going to click on that. You see I have a new fax notification. It automatically takes me to my fax application. And we have the logic that if you have a team or members that are members of multiple groups, so like Rick, let's say you're a member of HR and a member of finance, both teams have fax. Our logic knows which app to send you to on that notification, so you're guaranteed to land into that app. So I've got the notification. I come over here. We've designed this to look and feel just like a new email, a new text message, a new chat, right? Where it's bolded, you can quickly see that, oh, I've got a new fax. I'm clicking that. I'm opening it again, rendering the fax from SharePoint. And that's the biggest call out is, again, we're rendering the data. We are not saving the data in the application. And again, this sent to, for the demo, it's sent to the demo fax SharePoint, and it was sent from the demo fax SharePoint. So the last piece I'm going to quickly show is back under the demo fax team, and you can get to this via a web browser as well, but I'm going to go to the actual SharePoint site. In Teams, it's called Files. And for every fax account that gets created in the designated SharePoint site, we create our fax app folder, and then we organize it by the logical method that like in this case I have a receipts folder that would be for like fax confirmations and then a sent and receive. So to highlight that we are in fact storing this in SharePoint, when I sent the fax, here it is 3 minutes ago, you can see it's in there. I'm rendering that same fax from SharePoint. Again, this has nothing to do with the fax app anymore, and besides the fact we saved it there. And then remember, on my personal account, I decided to save it to the same SharePoint. So we should see 3 minutes ago, there's my folder. Okay. And
That's
then
great.
finally, back on the Fax app, just to call out, we will be doing a facelift on this application, but we'll start enriching the analytics dashboard to start showing richer analytics, and then giving the entity the ability to export and archive CDRs, and that could be for compliance reasons, for audit reasons. Again, you may want to save records of who sent what and when they sent it for compliance reasons. So
I was going to ask you, you okay if I share the facelift mock-ups at this point?
Yeah, yep, you can.
Okay,
Yep,
let me share the new ones.
Yeah, we've got some mock-ups that are looking pretty cool. Yep,
So
there we
that's
go.
that's the new one there, like beautiful dashboard here, pages, some success rate stuff there, call records. This is pretty cool. Some compose a fax stuff, the receive fax stuff. That's all great. New fax button up there. That's pretty cool. The send fax and any settings here. So all this is really cool. And I understand you're looking at putting number requests in here, so porting numbers right from the interface and potentially new numbers right from the interface down the road.
Yeah, lots of features coming with this fax application.
That's exciting. Okay, Brandon, hey, thanks for taking a few minutes and showing us the fax application. Lots of questions out there for it. We want to show people really quickly. I'll just say what it costs just because that's what people are asking for. Depends on the volume of fax numbers that you have. So every fax number could be 10, 20, or $50. Just depends on the volume of faxes that gets bundled into it within a per page limit over that bundle. So as an example, I think there is a $20 package that is 1,000 pages, and you've got a $10 version that's got 500 pages in there, and then it gets larger and larger from there. But basically, you can get into this for $10 or $20 a number, whether it's a group and or an individual user. So if you could, it seems like pretty relatively easy and painless to get into.
Yep. Come to
Very good.
Momentum for
Okay.
all your next generation fax needs.
Very good. All right. Thanks so much, Brandon. Appreciate it. Have a good day,
bet.
bud.
See ya.